Everyone says Ethan Cross is the perfect alpha-controlled, powerful, untouchable, but I can smell the lie on him from across the lecture hall, and it smells exactly like desperation. I don't know why he's staring at me. I shifted in my seat, pretending to focus on Professor Kim's lecture about territorial pack dynamics in modern America, but my skin prickled with awareness. Ethan sat 3 rows behind me, and I could feel his gaze like a physical weight pressing against the back of my neck. It had been like this for 2 weeks now, ever since I transferred to Washington State University's Seattle campus from California. The guy was relentless, not in an obvious way. He didn't approach me, didn't try to talk to me, didn't even acknowledge my existence when we passed each other in the hallways. But I caught him watching me everywhere. In the library, at the campus coffee shop, during practice drills at the PAC training grounds. It was starting to piss me off. The thing about being an Omega in 2024 is that people still treat you like you're made of glass. Fragile, precious, something to be protected and controlled. I'd spent my entire life proving that assumption wrong, and I wasn't about to let some brooding alpha with pretty eyes and a jawline that could cut steel make me question myself. Even if his scent did something weird to my pulse every time he got too close. Mr. Sawyer, I jerked my attention back to Professor Kim, who was looking at me with one raised eyebrow. The entire class had turned to stare, including Ethan. I could feel the heat of his gaze intensifying. Sorry, what? I asked if you could explain the difference between territorial bonding and emotional bonding in pack hierarchy. I straightened in my chair, forcing my voice to stay steady. Territorial bonding is instinctual. It's about scent marking and physical space. Emotional bonding is a choice. It requires trust, time, and actual communication. One's biology, the other's human. Professor Kim nodded, seemingly satisfied, and moved on to torture someone else with her questions. I let out a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. That's when Ethan's scent hit me. It shouldn't have been possible. He was too far away, and I'd been suppressing my Omega senses since puberty. But suddenly the lecture hall filled with the smell of winter rain and cedar smoke, sharp and clean, and so intense it made my teeth ache. My hands gripped the edge of my desk. What the hell was that? I risked a glance over my shoulder. Ethan was sitting perfectly still, his expression blank, but his knuckles were white where they gripped his pen. His eyes dark brown, almost black, locked onto mine for half a second before I whipped back around. My heart was racing. My scent glands tingled. This was bad. When class finally ended, I shoved my laptop into my bag and bolted for the door before anyone could corner me with small talk. The campus was beautiful in October, trees blazing with red and gold, the air crisp and cool, Mount Rainier visible in the distance. I love Seattle for that. It felt alive in a way California never quite managed. I was halfway across the quad when I heard footsteps behind me. Sawyer, wait! I stopped, debating whether to pretend I hadn't heard him, but something in his voice, rough, almost strained, made me turn around. Ethan stood about 10 feet away, hands shoved in the pockets of his black jacket. He was tall, maybe 6'2", with dark hair that fell across his forehead and a build that suggested he spent a lot of time in the gym. Attractive, sure, but Seattle was full of attractive alphas. That wasn't what made me hesitate. It was the way he looked at me, like he was trying to solve a puzzle, like I was something familiar and foreign at the same time. Can I help you? I kept my tone flat, unimpressed. He took a step closer, and I forced myself not to move. You're new to the Seattle Pack. Observant. Gold star for you. His jaw tightened. I'm Ethan Cross. My family leads the Northside District. I know who you are. Everyone knew who the Cross family was. Old money, old power, old traditions. Exactly the kind of pack structure I'd moved to Seattle to avoid. And I'm not interested in whatever territorial welcome wagon speech you're about to give me. Something flickered in his eyes, surprise maybe, or amusement. That's not why I'm here. Then why are you here? And why have you been staring at me like I'm a crime scene for the past 2 weeks? He opened his mouth, then closed it. For someone with his reputation, he looked completely off balance. It was almost satisfying. He ran a hand through his hair, a gesture that seemed uncharacteristically uncertain. Have we met before? I blinked. No. Are you sure? Pretty sure I'd remember meeting the great Ethan Cross. I adjusted my bag on my shoulder. Look, I don't know what your deal is, but I'm not interested in pack politics or alpha posturing or whatever this is. I came here to finish my degree and be left alone. That's not what this is. Then what is it? He stared at me for a long moment, and I watched something complicated move across his face: frustration, confusion, something that almost looked like pain. His scent shifted, becoming darker, more turbulent. I don't know, he said finally, but I need to figure it out. Before I could respond, he turned and walked away, leaving me standing alone in the middle of the quad with my pulse racing and my mind spinning. What the hell was that supposed to mean? I tried to shake it off as I headed toward my apartment, but his words kept echoing in my head. Have we met before? It was ridiculous. I would have remembered him. You don't forget someone who looks like that, who carries themselves with that kind of contained intensity. But there was something about the way he'd asked it, like he genuinely believed we had some kind of history. My phone buzzed with a text from my roommate, Marcus. Pizza night? I'm buying. I typed back a quick yes and tried to focus on normal things. Classes, homework, pizza with my best friend. Not mysterious alphas who stared too much and asked impossible questions. But that night, I dreamed of rain and cedar smoke, and a voice I couldn't quite place whispering, I found you. When I woke up, my pillow smelled like tears I didn't remember crying. I stared at the ceiling, watching shadows from the streetlight outside dance across the white paint. My heart was still racing, and I couldn't shake the feeling that those words in my dream hadn't been just a dream. Marcus was snoring in the room next to mine, completely oblivious to the fact that I was having some kind of existential crisis at 3 in the morning over an alpha I barely knew. I grabbed my phone off the nightstand. No new messages. Part of me had expected something from Ethan, which was stupid. We weren't friends. We weren't anything. So why did his scent linger in my nose like smoke I couldn't clear? I rolled out of bed and padded to the kitchen, desperate for water and distraction. Our apartment was small but comfortable. One of those old buildings near campus with hardwood floors that creaked and radiators that clanked. Through the window, I could see the Space Needle lit up in the distance, a constant reminder that I'd successfully escaped the suffocating pack structure of Orange County. Except now I had a different problem. I filled a glass at the sink, watching my reflection in the dark window. My hair was a mess, black and sticking up in every direction. My eyes looked too wide, too aware. I'd always been told I had my mother's face, soft and pretty in a way that made alphas assume I was delicate. They learned pretty quickly that assumption was a mistake. The water was cold going down, grounding me back in reality. Dreams were just dreams. Ethan Cross was just some entitled alpha with a staring problem. I'd dealt with worse in California. I could handle this. I was about to head back to bed when my phone lit up on the counter. Unknown number. Can't sleep either? My stomach dropped. I stared at the message, then at the window, suddenly hyper-aware of how exposed I was standing in the lit kitchen. Was he watching me? How did he even get my number? Me, who is this? The response came immediately. Unknown, you know who. Me, stalking is illegal in Washington State, just FYI. Unknown. It's not stalking. I got your number from the PAC registry. Me. That makes it so much better. What do you want? 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. I could practically feel his hesitation through the screen. Unknown. To talk? Tomorrow? Coffee? Me. Hard pass. Unknown. Please. I almost dropped my phone. Ethan Cross didn't seem like someone who said please very often. The word sat there on my screen, uncomfortably vulnerable. Me. Why? Unknown. Because I think you feel it too. My hands were shaking now. I did feel it, whatever it was. That pull, that strange recognition, the way his scent had wrapped around me in the lecture hall, like it was searching for something familiar. But admitting that felt dangerous. Me. Feel what? The dots appeared and stayed there for a long time. Too long. When his response finally came, it was just an address and a time. Unknown, North Lake Coffee, 10 a.m. I'll be there whether you come or not. I didn't respond. I turned off my phone and went back to bed, determined to ignore him and his cryptic messages and his stupid perfect face. But when morning came, I found myself standing outside North Lake Coffee at 9:58 a.m., wearing my favorite leather jacket and trying to convince myself I was only here to tell him to leave me alone. The coffee shop was busy, full of students and freelancers tapping away on laptops. It smelled like espresso and cinnamon, warm and inviting. I spotted Ethan immediately, sitting at a corner table by the window. He'd seen me too. His whole body had gone still, like a predator catching a scent. I weaved through the tables, keeping my expression neutral. When I reached him, I didn't sit down. "You've got 5 minutes," I said. "Then I'm leaving and you're deleting my number." He stood up, which brought us uncomfortably close in the crowded space. "You want anything? Coffee? Tea?" "I want to know why you think we've met before." His jaw worked. "Sit. Please." There was that word again. I hated how it affected me, how it made something in my chest tighten with reluctant curiosity. I dropped into the chair across from him, keeping my arms crossed. Ethan sat back down, his hands wrapped around a cup that looked absurdly small in his grip. Up close, I could see the dark circles under his eyes, the tension in his shoulders. He looked like he hadn't slept any better than I had. "3 weeks ago, I started having dreams," he said quietly, "about someone I couldn't quite see, couldn't hear clearly, but the feeling was so strong it woke me up every night." I didn't say anything. My heart was pounding too hard. "Then you walked into my advanced pack dynamics class, and everything clicked into place." His eyes met mine, intense and searching. "You were in my dreams, Sawyer. Your voice, your scent, the way you move. I know it sounds insane, but I swear I've known you before." "That's impossible." "I know. I grew up in California. I've never been to Seattle before last month. We've never met." "I know that too." He leaned forward and his scent washed over me again, cedar and rain and something underneath that made my instincts scream, "Mate." "But you feel it, don't you? This pull, like there's something between us that shouldn't exist but does anyway." I wanted to deny it. I should have denied it, but the words stuck in my throat because he was right. I did feel it, had felt it from the first moment I'd caught his scent in that lecture hall. "That doesn't mean anything," I said instead. "Sometimes scent compatibility is just biology." "This isn't just biology." His voice had dropped lower, rough around the edges. "Tell me you don't feel it. Look me in the eye and tell me I'm crazy, and I'll leave you alone." I opened my mouth to do exactly that. The lie was right there, ready to roll off my tongue and end this bizarre conversation. But then his hand moved across the table, not touching me, but close enough that I could feel the heat of his skin. And something inside me recognized that hand, knew the shape of it, the strength of it, had reached for it before in moments I couldn't remember. "I can't," I whispered. His breath caught. "What?" "I can't tell you you're crazy." I pulled my hand back, breaking whatever spell had fallen over us. "But I also can't do this. Whatever this is. I came to Seattle to start over, not to get tangled up in some alpha's weird supernatural connection fantasy." "Sawyer, my 5 minutes are up." I stood, grabbing my bag. "Lose my number, Ethan. I mean it." I made it 3 steps before his voice stopped me. "Your favorite color is green. The dark green of pine trees, not the bright kind. You hate the smell of lavender, but love jasmine. And you have a scar on your left shoulder from falling out of a tree when you were 7. I turned around slowly, my blood running cold. "How could you possibly know that?" Ethan was standing now, his expression caught between triumph and terror. "Because you told me. In another life." The coffee shop noise faded into white static. I couldn't hear anything except the blood rushing in my ears and those impossible words hanging between us. "That's not funny." My voice came out shakier than I wanted. "You don't get to play mind games with personal information you obviously stalked me for." "I didn't stalk you." Ethan took a step closer, and several people glanced our way. His scent was spiraling out of control, filling the space with tension that made my skin prickle. "I couldn't have known about the scar. It's not visible. and it's not in any medical records I'd have access to. He was right. The scar was hidden under my shirt, a small white line on my shoulder blade that even most of my friends had never seen. I'd fallen from a pine tree in my backyard trying to prove to the neighborhood alpha kids that Omegas could climb just as high. I'd broken my arm. The scar was from the surgery. Lucky guess, I said, but it sounded weak even to me. What about the rest? Your favorite color? The lavender? Those are common preferences. You're just fishing. Then tell me I'm wrong. He moved closer again, close enough now that I had to tilt my head back to maintain eye contact. Tell me your favorite color isn't dark green. Tell me you don't keep jasmine tea in your apartment and avoid any soap or detergent with lavender. I couldn't, because he was right about all of it. My hands were trembling, so I shoved them in my jacket pockets. Even if you somehow knew those things, reincarnation isn't real. Past lives aren't real. You sound completely unhinged right now. I know how it sounds. His voice dropped lower, almost pleading. But 3 weeks ago, I woke up remembering a life I never lived. I was someone else, weaker, overlooked. And there was this Omega he stopped, his throat working, who I loved, who rejected me. Something cold slithered down my spine. What? You rejected me? His eyes were burning into mine now, dark and desperate. In that life, in those memories, whatever they are, you told me I wasn't strong enough, that you needed an alpha who could protect you, and I would never be that. The words hit me like a physical blow, not because I remembered saying them, but because I could feel the truth of them somehow, buried deep in a part of my brain that shouldn't exist. Stop. I backed up until I hit the edge of a nearby table. A woman with a laptop gave me an annoyed look. Just stop. I don't know what kind of game this is, but I'm not playing. It's not a game, Sawyer. I died in that life. I know I did. I felt it. And then I woke up here, in this body, with these memories that don't belong to me. He ran both hands through his hair, looking lost. I thought I was losing my mind until I saw you, until your scent hit me and everything suddenly made sense. Nothing about this makes sense. But even as I said it, images were flickering at the edges of my vision. A face that wasn't quite Ethan's but felt like him anyway. Rain falling on pavement. The taste of regret, bitter and overwhelming. No, this was insane. I was not entertaining this. I need to leave. I turned toward the door. His hand caught my wrist, gentle but firm. The contact sent electricity shooting up my arm and I gasped. So did he. For a second we just stood there, connected by that single point of touch that felt like it was burning through my skin. Please don't run, he said quietly. I know I sound crazy. Maybe I am crazy, but you feel this too. I know you do. I yanked my wrist free, trying to ignore the way my body screamed at the loss of contact. What I feel is extremely creeped out by someone who's either a stalker or genuinely delusional. Either way, I'm done. Sawyer, no. I pointed at him, my fingers shaking. You don't get to show up in my life with some supernatural soap opera story and expect me to just accept it. I don't know you, I don't remember you, and I definitely don't owe you anything from a life I never lived. His face shuddered, that vulnerable desperation closing off behind a mask of cold control. It was unsettling how quickly he could switch, how the broken boy disappeared and the powerful alpha took his place. You're right, he said flatly. I'm sorry for bothering you. He turned and walked out of the coffee shop, leaving me standing there with my heart racing and my mind spinning. I should have felt relieved. Instead, I felt like I just made a terrible mistake. The barista called out an order, and the normal sounds of the coffee shop rushed back in. People typing, conversations flowing, the hiss of the espresso machine. Everything was exactly as it had been 5 minutes ago. Except I wasn't. I sank into the nearest chair, my legs suddenly unsteady. My wrist still tingled where he'd touched me, and when I closed my eyes, I could see fragments of something that felt like memory but couldn't be. A smaller hand reaching up. A voice saying, "You'll never be strong enough." Pain blooming in someone's chest that might have been mine, might have been his, might have been no one's. "You okay, hun?" An older woman at the next table was looking at me with concern. You look like you've seen a ghost. I laughed and it came out slightly hysterical. Maybe I have. She smiled sympathetically and went back to her book, clearly deciding I was just another stressed college student having a breakdown. If only it were that simple. I pulled out my phone with shaking hands and opened my messages. Ethan's number was still there, saved now as Ethan Cross in my contacts. When had I done that? I didn't remember adding him. My thumb hovered over his name. I should block him. Delete the number. Pretend this whole bizarre morning never happened. Instead, I found myself typing. Me. The scar. How did you really know about it? The response came within seconds, like he'd been waiting. Ethan. Because I was there when it happened. Not in this life. But I remember watching you climb that tree, remember thinking you were the bravest person I'd ever seen. Even then, my breath caught in my throat. Me. This is impossible. Ethan. I know, but it's happening anyway. I stared at his words, my mind racing through every logical explanation and finding none that fit. Stalking didn't explain the level of detail he knew. Lucky guesses didn't explain the way his touch had felt like coming home to somewhere I'd never been. And they definitely didn't explain the ache in my chest that had appeared the moment he walked out that door. Me. If any of this is real, if you really remember another life, then prove it. Tell me something nobody else could possibly know. The dots appeared and disappeared 3 times. When his message finally came, it was just 2 words. Ethan. You're terrified. My phone nearly slipped from my hands. Ethan. Not of me, of yourself, of wanting something you think you don't deserve. You've spent your whole life proving you're strong enough, tough enough, that you don't need anyone. But the truth is, you're exhausted from carrying it all alone. Tears burned behind my eyes because he was right. God, he was so right it hurt. Ethan. And in that other life, I was too weak to help you carry it. But I'm not weak anymore, Sawyer. Let me prove it. I wiped my eyes with the back of my hand, angry at myself for the tears that threatened to fall. The coffee shop suddenly felt too small, too crowded, too full of people who were living normal lives without dead alphas, texting them emotional gut punches. My phone buzzed again. Ethan, I'm still outside. If you want to talk. Of course he was, because apparently the universe had decided today was the day I completely lost my grip on reality. I stood up, grabbed my bag, and walked toward the door before I could talk myself out of it. The cool October air hit my face as I stepped outside, and I spotted him immediately. He was leaning against the brick wall of the building next door, hands in his pockets, looking up at the overcast sky like he was searching for answers in the clouds. He straightened when he saw me, and the hope that flickered across his face was almost painful to witness. Okay, I said, stopping a few feet away. I'll bite. Let's say hypothetically that you're not completely insane. Let's say you really do remember another life. What exactly do you want from me? The truth. He pushed off the wall, closing the distance between us. I want to know if you remember anything. Even fragments. Dreams that don't make sense. Feelings you can't explain. I thought about the dream from last night. The whispered words, the tears on my pillow. Maybe, I admitted reluctantly. But that doesn't prove anything. Dreams are just our brains processing random information. Then explain this. He pulled out his phone and opened a photo. I drew this 2 days after the dream started, before I ever saw you. He held the screen toward me, and my stomach dropped. It was a sketch, rough but detailed. A figure with dark hair and delicate features, caught mid-laugh, head tilted back. The style was simple, almost hasty, like he'd been desperate to get it down before the memory faded. It looked exactly like me. I could have seen you around campus, I said, but my voice was weak. Drawn you without realizing. Look at the date. He zoomed in on the corner, where a timestamp was visible. September 8th. 3 weeks before I transferred to Washington State. The ground felt unsteady beneath my feet. This doesn't make sense. I know. His voice was soft, careful, like he was approaching a wounded animal. But it's real, Sawyer. Whatever this is, whatever's happening between us, it's real. A car drove past, splashing through a puddle. The sound echoed in the sudden silence between us. Even if I believed you, I said slowly, even if I accepted that somehow you remember a life where we knew each other, that doesn't change anything. You said I rejected you, that I told you that you weren't good enough. Why would you even want to find me again after that? Something dark and complicated moved across his face. Because I understand now. In that life, I was weak, a beta with no real power, no way to protect you in a world that tears Omegas apart. You were right to reject me. That's messed up. Maybe. He took another step closer, and I could smell cedar and rain again, so strong it made my head spin. But I'm not that person anymore. I'm an alpha now, strong enough to stand beside you, strong enough to prove that you made the wrong choice. The arrogance in his voice should have pissed me off. Instead, it sent heat pooling in my stomach, and I hated myself for it. You think you can just show up and fix whatever happened in some past life? That I'm supposed to fall at your feet because you got a supernatural upgrade? No. His eyes locked onto mine, intense and unwavering. I think you're supposed to give me a chance to show you who I am now. Not who I was. Not who you remember. Who I became. My phone buzzed in my pocket. Probably Marcus wondering where I was. I ignored it. And what if I don't remember? What if I never remember? The question came out more vulnerable than I intended. What if you're in love with a ghost and I'm just some guy who happens to look like him? Ethan reached out slowly, giving me time to pull away. When I didn't, his fingers brushed against my cheek, barely a touch but enough to make my breath catch. Then I'll make you fall for who I am now, he said quietly. I'll court you the right way, prove myself. Show you that this connection between us isn't just about the past. Court me? What is this, the 1950s? I tried to sound sarcastic, but it came out breathless instead. His thumb traced along my jawline, and every nerve ending in my body lit up. Give me 2 weeks, let me take you out, spend time with you, show you who I am. If after 2 weeks you still think I'm crazy, I'll walk away. I'll delete your number, transfer out of your classes, whatever you need. That's a terrible deal. What do I get out of it? Answers. His hand dropped from my face and I immediately missed the warmth. Because I know you feel this pull too. I know you're curious, and I know you hate not understanding something. Damn him for being right. I crossed my arms trying to rebuild the walls he'd somehow managed to crack. Fine, 2 weeks. But there are rules. Anything. No stalking, no showing up at my apartment uninvited, no cryptic messages at 3 in the morning. Agreed. And if you do anything, and I mean anything, that makes me uncomfortable, the deal is off and you leave me alone. Forever. Done. He was smiling now, small but genuine. It transformed his entire face, made him look younger, almost vulnerable. Can I ask you something? You're really pushing your luck here. Why did you come to Seattle? You said you wanted to start over. From what? The question caught me off guard. I'd been so focused on his revelations that I hadn't expected him to turn the attention back on me. That's personal, I said. So is everything I just told you. Fair point. I looked away, watching a group of students cross the street toward campus. My old pack in California had very traditional views about Omegas. Who we should bond with, what roles we should fill, how we should behave. I got tired of fighting it. Tired of being seen as a prize to be won instead of a person with my own goals. So you ran. I prefer relocated strategically. I met his eyes again. And before you get any ideas, I'm not looking to trade one possessive alpha situation for another. If we're doing this, you need to understand that I make my own choices. Always. I wouldn't want it any other way. His scent shifted, becoming warmer, almost pleased. I fell for your strength, Sawyer. I'm not interested in breaking it. The sincerity in his voice made something in my chest tighten. This was dangerous. He was dangerous. Not because he might hurt me, but because some traitorous part of me wanted to believe every impossible word he'd said. 2 weeks, I repeated. Starting when? Now. He pulled out his phone. Give me your real number, not just the pack registry one. You already have my number, stalker. I want you to give it to me, willingly. I rolled my eyes but recited the digits anyway. His phone buzzed a second later with my contact information, and he saved it with a small smile that shouldn't have been as attractive as it was. So what happens now? I asked. Do you have some elaborate date planned? Candlelight dinner? Rose petals? Now I walk you to wherever you're going next, and we talk like normal people. Save the elaborate dates for when you're more convinced I'm not completely insane. Bold of you to assume that day will come. But I let him fall into step beside me as I started walking back toward campus. And when his hand accidentally brushed against mine, I didn't pull away. We walked in silence for half a block, the sounds of Seattle morning traffic filling the space between us. I was hyper-aware of every step, every breath. The way his presence beside me felt both foreign and familiar at the same time. So, Ethan said finally, breaking the quiet, "What's your major?" I glanced at him sideways. "We're really doing small talk? After everything that just happened? You said you wanted normal. I'm trying normal." There was a hint of amusement in his voice. "Unless you'd prefer I keep talking about past life memories and cosmic connections. Point taken. Psychology with a minor in pack dynamics. You? Business management. My father insists all cross-family alphas understand how to run pack territories like corporations." He said it with a bitter edge that surprised me. Not exactly my passion, but family expectations and all that. Let me guess. You'd rather be doing something creative? Art? Music? I gestured toward his phone. You can draw, apparently. His neck flushed slightly, visible even against his tan skin. It's just a hobby, nothing serious. Right, because drawing detailed portraits of people from your dreams is totally casual. I bumped my shoulder against his arm, surprised by my own playfulness. Come on, what would you do if dear old dad wasn't breathing down your neck about family legacy? He was quiet for a moment, and I thought maybe I'd pushed too hard. But then he said, architecture. I love buildings, how they shape the way people live and interact, how a space can make you feel safe or exposed, connected or isolated. The vulnerability in his admission made me look at him differently. This wasn't the powerful alpha heir everyone saw on campus. This was someone with dreams he'd probably never get to pursue. That's actually really cool, I said softly. You should do it. Life's too short to live for someone else's expectations. Speaking from experience? Every damn day. We'd reached the main campus quad now, and I stopped walking. My family wanted me to bond with the alpha son of their closest pack allies. He was nice enough, but completely boring. I was supposed to smile pretty, produce pups, and let him make all the decisions. When I told him I wanted to go to graduate school instead, my mother cried for a week. Hence Seattle. Hence freedom. I shifted my bag higher on my shoulder. I'm not going back to that life. Not for anyone. Ethan turned to face me fully, his expression serious. I meant what I said before. I don't want to cage you, Sawyer. I want to know the real you. The one who climbs trees and argues with professors and runs across the country to escape expectations. Smooth talker. But my heart was beating faster. Is this part of the courting strategy? Figure out what I want to hear? No. He stepped closer, and suddenly we were in our own bubble despite the students passing by on all sides. This is me being honest, because that other version of me, the one from before, never got to say these things, never got to tell you that your strength was what I loved most, that watching you fight for yourself made me want to be stronger too. My throat felt tight. You're making this really hard to keep my walls up. Good. His voice dropped lower, intimate, because I can feel yours too. All that armor you wear, pretending you don't need anyone. But everyone needs someone, Sawyer, even you. Cocky much? I tried to sound annoyed, but it came out shaky. Confident. His hand lifted, hovering near my face but not touching. Can I? I should have said no. Should have stepped back, reminded him about boundaries and taking things slow. Instead, I found myself nodding. His fingers traced the line of my jaw, slow and deliberate, like he was memorizing the shape of me. His touch was warm, calloused in a way that suggested he wasn't just some pampered pack heir. When his thumb brushed across my lower lip, I stopped breathing entirely. You have no idea how many times I imagined this, he murmured. Being close enough to touch you, having you not pull away, This is really intense for a first conversation, I managed. But I didn't move. Couldn't move. We've had 1,000 conversations. You just don't remember them yet. Before I could respond, a familiar voice cut through the moment. Sawyer, there you are. I jerked back from Ethan's touch, my heart hammering as Marcus jogged up to us. My roommate looked between us with obvious curiosity, his blue eyes sharp with interest. Marcus, hi. I tried to sound casual and probably failed spectacularly. You disappeared this morning without a word. I was starting to think you'd been kidnapped. Marcus's gaze landed on Ethan, and something shifted in his expression. Ethan Cross. Didn't expect to see you here. Marcus Chen. Ethan's entire demeanor changed, becoming cooler, more guarded. Still playing bodyguard? Wait, they knew each other? Marcus's jaw tightened. Still playing Alpha King? The tension between them was suddenly thick enough to cut. I looked back and forth, confused. Okay, what am I missing here? Nothing important, Marcus said, but his body language screamed otherwise. He was positioned slightly in front of me, protective in a way that would have been sweet if it wasn't so awkward. I just didn't realize you knew the Cross family golden boy. We just met, I said, which was technically true. Well, sort of. It's complicated. I'm sure it is. Marcus's tone was carefully neutral, but I'd known him long enough to hear the concern underneath. Can I talk to you for a second? Alone? Ethan's sense spiked, cedar smoke going sharp and possessive. We were in the middle of something, and now you're not. Marcus didn't back down, which was impressive considering Ethan had at least 4 inches and probably 50 pounds of muscle on him. 2 minutes, Cross. You can spare that. I put a hand on Marcus's arm. It's okay, really. Then to Ethan, give us a second. Ethan looked like he wanted to argue, his jaw tight and eyes dark, but he nodded stiffly and stepped back, pulling out his phone like he suddenly had very important messages to check. Marcus immediately dragged me several feet away, his voice dropping to an urgent whisper. What are you doing with him? Having a conversation. Why are you acting like I'm playing with fire? Because you are. Marcus glanced over his shoulder to where Ethan stood, deliberately not looking at us. The Cross family isn't just influential, Sawyer. They're dangerous. Old pack politics, old money, old rules. Ethan's father practically runs the Seattle pack hierarchy. So, I'm not dating his father. You shouldn't be dating him either. Marcus's grip on my arm tightened. I've heard things about how the Cross family treats Omegas, about expectations and traditions that make your California pack look progressive. Something cold settled in my stomach. What kind of things? The kind where bonding isn't a choice, it's a transaction, where Omegas are valued for bloodlines and breeding potential. His eyes were serious. Worried. I'm not saying Ethan is like that. I don't know him well enough, but his family is, and that kind of pressure has a way of changing people. I pulled my arm free, irritation flaring. I can handle myself, Marcus. I've been doing it my whole life. I know you can, but that doesn't mean you should have to. He sighed, running a hand through his hair. Just be careful, okay? I don't want to see you get hurt. The genuine concern in his voice softened my anger. Marcus had been my friend since orientation, had helped me move into our apartment, had stayed up late listening to me vent about pack politics and family pressure. He was just trying to protect me. I promise I'll be careful, I said, but you have to trust me to make my own decisions, even the potentially stupid ones. Especially those, he smiled reluctantly. That's when you need friends most. I hugged him quickly, then turned back to where Ethan was waiting. He was watching us with an expression I couldn't quite read, something between jealousy and resignation. Everything okay? He asked as I approached. Fine. Marcus is just protective. I noticed. His tone was dry. Should I be worried about competition? Marcus is a beta and straight, also my roommate and best friend. I studied his face. Why do you two know each other? Our families run in similar circles. We've crossed paths at pack functions. He paused. He's right to warn you, you know. My family does have expectations. Traditional ones. And I don't care. The fierceness in his voice startled me. Whatever they expect, Whatever pressure they put on me, it doesn't change what I want, which is you. Just you. The words hung in the air between us, heavy with a promise that scared me as much as it thrilled me. I opened my mouth to respond, but nothing came out. What was I supposed to say to that level of intensity? That's a lot of pressure to put on someone you just met, I finally managed. I know. He didn't look away, didn't soften the statement. But I'm done pretending this is casual. I died once already, Sawyer. I'm not wasting this second chance dancing around what I want. My phone buzzed insistently in my pocket. I pulled it out and saw 3 missed texts from Marcus, each more concerned than the last. The most recent one just said, "If you need an escape route, text me pineapple." I couldn't help but laugh. Pineapple? Ethan raised an eyebrow. What? Nothing. Just Marcus being Marcus. I pocketed the phone. Look, I need to get to my next class. Comparative pack structures with Professor Hayes. I'm already pushing it on time. I'll walk you. You don't have to. I want to. He fell into step beside me as I started toward the humanities building. Besides, Hayes is brutal if you're late. Better to have company for the walk of shame if you don't make it. Speaking from experience? Let's just say I learned early on that Hayes doesn't care if you're an alpha or the president's son. Late is late. We cut across the quad at a quick pace, weaving between groups of students. The morning clouds had started to break up, letting weak sunlight filter through. It caught in Ethan's dark hair, highlighting threads of bronze I hadn't noticed before. So what happens after class, he asked. Can I see you again? Actual planned meeting this time, not ambushing you at coffee shops. I have work at the campus library until 6. Then I promised Marcus I'd help him study for his chemistry midterm. Tomorrow then? I glanced at him sideways. You really don't give up, do you? Not when it matters. His hand brushed against mine again, and this time I was certain it was deliberate. Dinner tomorrow, somewhere public, well lit, plenty of escape routes if I turn out to be a serial killer. How romantic. But I was smiling despite myself. Fine. Tomorrow, but I'm picking the place. Deal. The relief on his face was almost endearing. Text me the details? We'd reached the humanities building, and I could see other students filing into the lecture hall. I was definitely going to be late. I should go. Sawyer. He caught my wrist gently, the same way he had in the coffee shop. The contact sent that same electric shock through my system, but this time I was prepared for it. Sort of. Thank you for giving me a chance. Don't make me regret it, I said, but my voice was soft. His thumb traced small circles on the inside of my wrist, right over my pulse point. Could he feel how fast my heart was racing? From the knowing look in his eyes, definitely yes. I'll text you, he said. Is that allowed under the no stalking rule? Texting is fine. Just keep it to reasonable hours and reasonable frequency. Like a normal person. I can do normal. He released my wrist slowly, reluctantly. Even if nothing about this is normal. I turned toward the building entrance, then paused and looked back. He was still standing there watching me with an expression that made my stomach flip. Ethan? Yeah? In these memories of yours, the past life or whatever, was I hesitated, not sure why I was even asking. Was I happy? Something painful flickered across his face. Sometimes, when you let yourself be. But mostly you were trying so hard to prove something that you forgot how to just exist. The observation hit closer to home than I wanted to admit. I nodded once, then hurried inside before I could see his reaction. Professor Hayes was already starting her lecture when I slipped into the back row. She gave me a pointed look but didn't comment, which I counted as a win. I pulled out my laptop and tried to focus on her discussion of modern pack hierarchy versus traditional structures. But my mind kept drifting back to Ethan. To his touch, his words, the impossible situation I'd somehow agreed to explore. My wrist still tingled where his thumb had traced circles. Mr. Sawyer! I jumped, realizing Professor Hayes was looking directly at me. Care to share your thoughts on the tension between traditional territorial bonds and modern individual autonomy? Great. Called out twice in one day. Traditional bonds prioritize pack stability over individual choice, I said, scrambling to sound coherent. But modern Omegas are increasingly refusing to accept that framework. We're not willing to sacrifice autonomy for the illusion of safety anymore. Professor Hayes smiled slightly. Personal experience informing that answer? Maybe a little. Good. Theory means nothing without lived reality. She turned back to the board. The question becomes whether packs can evolve fast enough to accommodate this shift, or whether the traditional structure will collapse entirely. I typed notes automatically while my mind continued to spin. Was that what I was doing with Ethan? Testing whether someone from a traditional pack family could actually respect my autonomy? Or was I setting myself up for exactly the kind of heartbreak I'd moved to Seattle to avoid? My phone vibrated with a text. Ethan, made it to class? Me. Barely. Hayes is giving me the evil eye. Ethan. Worth it, though? I stared at the message, my thumb hovering over the keyboard. Was it worth it? Worth the risk, the confusion, the possibility that everything he'd told me was either insane or true and I didn't know which option scared me more? Me. Ask me again after tomorrow's dinner. Ethan. I'll make sure it's a good one then. I put my phone away and tried to refocus on the lecture, but something had shifted. The careful walls I'd built around myself since arriving in Seattle had developed cracks, and Ethan Cross was seeping through them like water. Professor Hayes was talking about choice and fate, about whether bonds were predetermined or created through shared experience. I found myself actually listening now, measuring her words against my own situation. The old beliefs held that true mates were fated, she said, that the universe itself conspired to bring certain alphas and omegas together. Modern science rejects this, of course. We understand scent compatibility as biology, not destiny, but that doesn't make the pull any less powerful when you encounter it. A student raised their hand. So if someone believes they're fated mates, does that belief itself create the reality? An excellent question. Psychology tells us that belief shapes experience. If you're convinced someone is your destined partner, you'll interpret every interaction through that lens. The question becomes whether the bond is genuine or if you're simply fulfilling your own prophecy. My chest felt tight. Was that what Ethan was doing? Creating a connection that didn't really exist because he believed so strongly in these memories? Or worse, was I the one doing it? Letting myself feel this pull because some part of me wanted to believe in destiny and second chances and cosmic do-overs? For homework, Professor Hayes continued, I want 3 pages on the ethics of fated mate ideology. Argue either for or against the concept, using both biological and sociological evidence. Due Friday. The class groaned collectively. I just added it to my growing list of things to worry about. When lecture finally ended, I gathered my things and headed for the library. My shift didn't start for another 20 minutes, but I needed the walk to clear my head. The campus was beautiful in the filtered sunlight, leaves crunching under my feet, other students laughing and talking in groups. I'd been so focused on escaping California that I hadn't let myself think about what I wanted to find in Seattle. Freedom, yes. Independence, absolutely. But maybe somewhere deep down, I'd been hoping for something more. For someone who saw me, really saw me. Not the perfect omega my family wanted or the prize other alphas competed for, but just me. Messy and stubborn and scared and strong all at once. Ethan claimed he saw that version of me, claimed he'd loved it in another life. The terrifying part was how badly I wanted to believe him. My phone buzzed again. Ethan, sorry, last text, but I forgot to say something. Me. What? Ethan. In that other life, I never told you how beautiful you were when you smiled, how your whole face changed and made everything else disappear. I'm not making that mistake twice. I stopped walking, standing frozen in the middle of the path while students flowed around me. My face felt hot, my heart racing again. Me. That's really unfair. Ethan. What is? Me. Making me want to smile just to see if you're right. His response came through before I could overthink it. Ethan. Then smile. I'll know. I did smile despite myself, standing there like an idiot in the middle of the sidewalk with my phone clutched in both hands. A passing group of girls gave me curious looks, probably wondering why I was grinning at my screen like it held the secrets of the universe. Me. Creepy. Are you watching me right now? Ethan. No, but I can feel it. Don't ask me how. I just can. That should have freaked me out. Instead, it sent warmth spreading through my chest that had nothing to do with the weak Seattle sun. I shoved my phone in my pocket and forced myself to keep walking toward the library. This was getting ridiculous. I didn't believe in fate or reincarnation or cosmic connections. I was a psychology major, for crying out loud. I dealt in observable behavior and measurable outcomes, not supernatural romance novel nonsense. But my wrist still tingled where he'd touched me, and I couldn't stop replaying the way he'd looked at me outside the coffee shop, like I was something precious he'd lost and miraculously found again. The library was blissfully quiet when I arrived. The familiar smell of old books and coffee from the campus cafe on the first floor immediately calming my racing thoughts. I clocked in at the front desk where Sarah, the head librarian, was sorting through returned books. "You're early," she said without looking up. "And you look flustered. Hot date? What? No, I just walk fast." She glanced at me over her reading glasses, one eyebrow raised. Sarah was in her 50s, a beta with zero patience for bullshit and an uncanny ability to read people. "Uh-huh. And I'm the Queen of England. Can I just work in peace without the interrogation?" "Fine, fine." She handed me a stack of books to reshelve. "But whoever he is, he better be worth that dopey look on your face." I grabbed the books and escaped to the stacks before she could psychoanalyze me further. The third floor was always the quietest, mostly theology and philosophy texts that no one touched, except during finals week. Perfect for hiding from well-meaning librarians and my own confusing thoughts. I was shelving a particularly dusty copy of Kierkegaard when my phone vibrated. Again. "Marcus, are you alive? Should I be worried? Blink twice if you're being held hostage." "Me, I'm fine. At work. Stop being dramatic." "Marcus, I'm not being dramatic. I'm being appropriately concerned about my best friend getting tangled up with Seattle Pack royalty." "Me, we just talked. It's not that serious." "Marcus, yet. It's not that serious yet. These things have a way of escalating." I leaned against the bookshelf, suddenly exhausted. Marcus meant well, but his concern was just adding to the chaos in my head. I didn't need more people telling me what to do or who to avoid. I'd had enough of that in California. "Me. I appreciate you looking out for me, but I need to figure this out on my own. Okay?" "Marcus. Okay, but I'm here when it inevitably gets complicated, and it will. Trust me." I pocketed my phone and went back to shelving, trying to lose myself in the mindless task. But my thoughts kept circling back to Ethan, to his drawings and his memories and his impossible certainty that we were meant to find each other. What if he was right? What if there was something more than biology and chance at play here? And what if he was wrong? What if this was all just elaborate delusion fueled by vivid dreams and scent compatibility? I was so lost in thought that I didn't notice someone approaching until a shadow fell across the bookshelf. "Excuse me, do you work here?" I turned expecting some freshman looking for help with research. Instead, I found myself face to face with a tall, elegant woman in her 40s, wearing a designer coat that probably cost more than my entire semester's tuition. She had Ethan's dark eyes and sharp cheekbones. "Oh no." "Yeah," I managed. "Can I help you find something?" She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Actually, I was looking for you." "Sawyer Reeves, correct?" My stomach dropped. "How do you know my name?" "I'm Catherine Cross, Ethan's mother." She said it pleasantly, like we were old friends running into each other. "I was hoping we could have a quick chat." Everything in me screamed to run. This was exactly the kind of pack politics I'd moved across the country to escape. But I was at work, in public, and she was blocking my path back to the main aisle. "I'm actually on the clock right now, so this won't take long." She gestured toward a nearby study table. "Just a few minutes of your time." It wasn't really a request. The authority in her voice made that clear. I set down the books I was holding and followed her to the table, my heart pounding. She sat with perfect posture, hands folded on the table like we were having tea instead of an ambush in a library. "I understand you've been spending time with my son," she said. "We've talked a few times. It's not a big deal." "Isn't it?" Her smile sharpened. Ethan has been rather distracted lately, missing family dinners, skipping pack functions. His father and I were curious about the cause. Maybe you should ask him instead of tracking down his friends. Oh, you're not friends. She leaned forward slightly. Friends don't look at each other the way you two were looking at each other this morning in the quad. I happened to be visiting campus for a board meeting and saw you together. So she'd been watching us. Great. With all due respect, Mrs. Cross, who your son spends time with isn't really your business. Actually, it very much is. Her pleasant facade cracked slightly. The Cross family has responsibilities to this pack, alliances to maintain, traditions to uphold. Ethan understands that, even if he's currently distracted. By me, you mean? By the idea of you. She said it gently, almost pitying. My son has always been prone to romantic notions. When he gets something in his head, he pursues it with single-minded intensity. It's admirable in some contexts. In this case, it's merely inconvenient. Heat flooded my face, anger mixing with humiliation. You came here to tell me I'm an inconvenience? I came here to offer you clarity. She pulled an envelope from her purse and placed it on the table. The Cross family values discretion. If you were to quietly distance yourself from Ethan, focus on your studies, perhaps transfer to a different university, we would be happy to assist with any financial concerns you might have. I stared at the envelope, rage building in my chest. You're trying to bribe me to leave your son alone? I'm offering you an opportunity to avoid an unfortunate situation. Her voice remained calm, reasonable. Ethan will do his duty eventually. He'll bond with someone appropriate to his station. But young alphas can be reckless, and I'd hate to see you get hurt when reality inevitably intrudes. Someone appropriate. I laughed, but it came out bitter. Let me guess, another pack family with the right connections and bloodlines? You're a bright young man. I'm sure you understand how these things work. Yeah, I understand perfectly. I stood up, leaving the envelope on the table. I understand that you think you can control your son's life like some kind of arranged marriage fairy tale. I understand that you see me as a threat to your precious pack politics. And I understand that you have absolutely no idea who Ethan actually is or what he wants. Her expression went cold. Careful, Mr. Reeves. You're new to Seattle. You don't want to make enemies of the wrong people. Is that a threat? It's advice. She stood as well, smoothing her coat. The Cross family protects its own. If you pursue this relationship with my son, you'll find that our reach is considerable. Jobs become scarce. Housing gets difficult. Pack protections disappear. My hands were shaking with fury, but I kept my voice level. Thanks for the warning. You can tell your husband that his intimidation tactics won't work on me. I didn't leave one controlling pack just to bow down to another. How admirable. Her smile was razor sharp now. Ethan always did have a weakness for lost causes. I suppose we'll see how long that lasts. She walked away, heels clicking on the library floor, leaving the envelope behind like contaminated evidence. I sank back into the chair, my legs suddenly unsteady. My phone was already out before I consciously decided to text him. Me. Your mother just cornered me at work. The response was immediate. Ethan. What? Are you okay? Where are you? Me. Library, third floor. She tried to bribe me to stay away from you. Ethan. I'm coming. Don't move. Me. You don't have to. Ethan. I'm already on my way. I stared at my phone screen, part of me wanting to text him back and tell him not to come, that I could handle this myself. But my hands were still shaking, and the envelope on the table seemed to pulse with its own toxic energy. How much money was in there? Enough to make me disappear from Ethan's life without a fuss? I grabbed it, feeling the weight of it. Thick. Definitely not just a token gesture. For a second, I considered opening it, seeing exactly what the Cross family thought my dignity was worth. Instead, I stood up and walked to the nearest trash can, dropping it in without looking back. Footsteps echoed from the stairwell, fast and urgent. Ethan appeared at the end of the aisle moments later, slightly out of breath, his eyes scanning the space until they landed on me. The relief that crossed his face was quickly replaced by something darker when he took in my expression. What did she say to you? He closed the distance between us in 3 strides. The usual rich family bullshit. I tried to sound casual, but my voice betrayed me with a slight tremor. Offered me money to transfer schools and stay away from you. Threw in some subtle threats about making my life difficult if I didn't comply. His jaw clenched, a muscle ticking beneath his skin. I'm going to kill her. Get in line. I leaned back against the bookshelf, suddenly exhausted. Is this what your life is like? People trying to control every decision you make? Yes. The honesty in that single word was almost painful. Since I was old enough to understand what the family name meant, who I could befriend, where I could go, what I could study, every choice filtered through what benefits the pack, what maintains our status. That sounds like hell. It is. He moved closer, and I could smell cedar and rain again, but now it was mixed with something sharper. Anger. But I'm done with it. Done letting them dictate my life. Easy to say, harder to do when they control everything. I gestured vaguely at the library around us. Your mom made it pretty clear they could make things very uncomfortable for me. They won't. His voice was steel. I won't let them. How? You just admitted they control your entire life. Not anymore. He pulled out his phone, typing rapidly. I'm calling my father right now and telling him exactly what I think of Mother's little visit. I grabbed his wrist before he could dial. Wait, don't do that. Why not? They need to know this isn't acceptable. Because then this becomes a huge thing. A family war with me? In the middle of it. I tightened my grip on his wrist. I don't want to be the reason you blow up your relationship with your parents. They're the ones who crossed the line. I know, but still. I let go of his wrist, hating how vulnerable I sounded. What if Marcus is right? What if your family is too powerful to fight? What if I'm just setting myself up to get crushed? Ethan caught my face in both hands, forcing me to look at him. His palms were warm against my cheeks, his touch gentle despite the intensity in his eyes. Look at me, he said quietly. Really look at me. I did. His eyes were so dark they were almost black, but up close I could see flecks of amber in them, could see the determination mixed with something that looked almost like desperation. In that other life, I let fear control everything. Let people tell me I wasn't strong enough, wasn't worthy enough, wasn't alpha enough to fight for what I wanted. His thumbs brushed across my cheekbones. I lost you because I was too weak to stand up for us. I'm not making that mistake again. This isn't some past life drama, Ethan. This is real. Your family could actually hurt me. Then I'll protect you. How? You're one person against an entire pack dynasty. So were you when you left California. His hand slid from my face to my shoulders. You walked away from your family, your pack, everything you knew because you refused to let them control you. That took more courage than anything I've ever done. Don't tell me now that you're scared of mine. He had a point. I hated that he had a point. I'm not scared, I said. But it came out less convincing than I'd hoped. I'm being realistic. Realism is just fear with better PR. A small smile tugged at his lips. Someone smart told me that life's too short to live for other people's expectations. Using my own words against me, that's low. That's strategy. His smile faded, becoming serious again. Sawyer, I know this is fast. I know it's intense and complicated and probably insane. But I also know that I didn't survive death and get a second chance just to waste it being afraid. You didn't survive death. You had weird dreams. Okay, fine. I had incredibly vivid, detailed, emotionally devastating dreams that somehow gave me accurate information about a person I'd never met. His hand squeezed my shoulders gently. Better? Despite everything, I felt a laugh bubble up. You're ridiculous. I'm determined. He pulled me closer until barely any space remained between us. Tell me you don't feel this. Tell me your heart isn't racing right now. Tell me you didn't smile at your phone earlier because my text made you happy. My heart was definitely racing. His closeness was doing dangerous things to my ability to think straight, and his scent was everywhere, wrapping around me like smoke. That doesn't mean anything, I managed. Biology isn't destiny. No, but choice is. His forehead dropped to rest against mine, and I stopped breathing entirely. Choose me, Sawyer. Not because of some past life, or fate, or cosmic connection. Choose me because of who I am right now in this moment, because I see you and I'm not looking away. Your family will never accept me. I don't care. You say that now, but I don't care. He punctuated each word carefully. They can disown me, cut me off, kick me out of the pack. I'll work 3 jobs and live in a shoebox apartment if I have to. As long as you're there, nothing else matters. That's insane. You'd give up everything for someone you barely know? I know you. His voice dropped to barely a whisper. Maybe not all the details of this version of you, not yet, but I know your soul, Sawyer. I know the way you fight for yourself even when you're terrified. I know the way you hide vulnerability behind sarcasm. I know that you want so badly to believe someone could choose you without conditions, but you're scared to hope for it. Tears burned behind my eyes. How did he know that? How could he see straight through every defense I'd spent years building? This is too much, I whispered. It's too fast. I know. His nose brushed against mine, the gesture impossibly tender. But I'm not going anywhere. Even if you need time, even if you need space, I'll wait. Your mom said you'll eventually do your duty. Bond with someone appropriate. My mom doesn't know what the hell she's talking about. Anger flashed across his face again. There is no one appropriate. There's only you. Stop saying things like that. Why? Because it makes me want to believe you. The confession slipped out before I could stop it. Something shifted in his expression, softening from determination to something more vulnerable. Then believe me. Take a leap of faith. I don't do faith. I do evidence and logic. Okay. He pulled back slightly, just enough to meet my eyes. Then here's your evidence. My heart rate is through the roof right now. My hands are shaking even though I'm trying to hide it. And I'm terrified that you're going to walk away. But I'm here anyway, because being away from you is worse than facing rejection. I looked down and saw that he was right. His hands were trembling slightly where they rested on my shoulders. That's not evidence, I said. That's just anxiety. It's both. A corner of his mouth lifted. I can be anxious and right at the same time. Your logic is terrible. My logic is perfect. You're just stubborn. I'm cautious. You're scared. He said it gently, without judgment. And that's okay. I'm scared too. But I'd rather be scared with you than safe without you. The library felt too small suddenly. The air too thick. Every instinct I had was screaming at me to run, to protect myself, to not let this alpha with his impossible memories and dangerous family get any closer. But I didn't move. One dinner, I heard myself say. Tomorrow, like we agreed. After that, I'm deciding if this is worth the headache your family's going to cause. Relief flooded his face. One dinner, I can work with that. And you need to actually talk to your parents. Not yell at them, but have a real conversation about boundaries. Done. And if they threaten me again, I'm gone. I'm not going to be a pawn in some pack power struggle. They won't. I'll make sure of it. His hand slid down my arms, leaving trails of heat. Anything else? Yeah. I met his eyes. Kiss me. His eyes widened, shock and desire warring across his face. What? You heard me. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. If I'm going to risk everything on this insane situation, I need to know if the chemistry is real or if it's all just pretty words and cosmic delusion. Sawyer. My name came out rough, almost pained. If I kiss you right now, I don't know if I'll be able to stop. Then don't stop. The words tumbled out before I could second-guess them. Unless you're all talk and no, he kissed me. 1 second I was challenging him, and the next his mouth was on mine, swallowing whatever sarcastic comment I'd been about to make. His hands cupped my face again, angling my head as he deepened the kiss, and every coherent thought I'd ever had evaporated. This wasn't a gentle first kiss. This was desperation and recognition, and 2 lifetimes of want compressed into a single moment. His lips moved against mine like he was trying to memorize the shape of me, and when his tongue traced the seam of my mouth, I opened for him without hesitation. The taste of him hit me like a drug. Cedar and rain, and something underneath that was purely Ethan, purely alpha, purely mine. The thought should have scared me. Instead, it sent heat pooling low in my stomach. I grabbed his jacket, pulling him closer, needing more contact. He made a sound low in his throat that went straight to my core, and suddenly his hands were everywhere. My waist, my back, tangling in my hair, like he couldn't decide where he wanted to touch me most. God, he breathed against my mouth. I remember this. The way you taste. The little sound you make when... I did make a sound when his teeth grazed my bottom lip. Something between a gasp and a whimper that would have embarrassed me if I'd had any brain cells left to care. He backed me against the bookshelf, books pressing into my spine, and I didn't care. Couldn't care about anything except the way his body felt against mine. Solid and warm and right in a way that defied logic. His scent was overwhelming now, filling my lungs with every desperate breath. My omega instincts were screaming at me to submit, to bare my throat, to let this alpha claim me right here in the theology section of the library. Instead, I bit his lip. He jerked back, eyes wide and dark with surprise and arousal. Did you just... I don't submit, I said breathlessly. Not even to cosmic destiny or whatever this is. The smile that spread across his face was absolutely feral. I know. That's what I love about you. Love. He'd said love. Before I could process that, he was kissing me again. But different this time. Slower, deeper, like he had all the time in the world to explore my mouth. His hands gentled, one sliding up to cup the back of my neck while the other rested on my hip. Thumb tracing small circles that made me shiver. This kiss felt like a promise, like he was trying to tell me something words couldn't express. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, he rested his forehead against mine again. Still think it's just biology? Shut up, I managed, but there was no heat in it. My lips felt swollen, my body humming with want. That was, okay, that was pretty good. Pretty good, he laughed, the sound vibrating through both of us. I'll take it as a challenge to do better next time. Confident much? With you? Always. His hand came up to trace my jaw, gentle and reverent. Because I've spent lifetimes dreaming about this moment, and somehow reality is better. I wanted to argue, to point out how insane that sounded, but I couldn't, because kissing him had felt like coming home to a place I'd never been. Like finding a piece of myself I didn't know was missing. This doesn't solve everything, I said quietly. Your family is still going to be a problem. The pack politics are still real, and I still think you might be a little bit crazy. Completely crazy, he agreed. Crazy about you. That was terrible. Never say that again. Make me. So I did. I kissed him again, softer this time, testing the shape of this new thing between us. His lips curved into a smile against mine, and I felt something in my chest crack open. Something that had been locked tight since I left California, maybe longer. Hope. When we finally separated for real, my phone was buzzing insistently in my pocket. I pulled it out to find 7 missed texts from Marcus, each more concerned than the last. I should probably tell him I'm alive, I said. Probably. But Ethan didn't let go of me, his arms still wrapped around my waist. Can I see you tonight, after your shift? I promised Marcus study time. Tomorrow then, our dinner. I nodded, then paused. Ethan, when you talk to your parents, don't blow up your whole life for me. Not yet. Let's figure out if this is real first. It's real. He said it with such certainty that I almost believed him. But I'll be smart about it. For you. For us, I corrected. His smile was brilliant, transforming his entire face. For us. I kissed him once more, quick and sweet, then slipped out of his arms before I could change my mind about leaving. Text me when you're done destroying your family's expectations. It's a date. I made it 3 steps before turning back. Hey, Ethan. Yeah? Thank you for seeing me, the real me. His eyes softened. Always, Sawyer. In every lifetime. I rolled my eyes to hide the emotion threatening to overwhelm me. You're so dramatic. You like it. I did. God help me, I really did. As I headed back downstairs to finish my shift, I caught sight of my reflection in a library window. I was smiling like an idiot, my lips still swollen from kissing, my hair a mess from his hands. I looked happy. My phone buzzed with a new text. Ethan, that smile told you I'd know. Me, stalker. Ethan, you're stalker. Me, unfortunately. Ethan, fortunately, see you tomorrow, beautiful. I pocketed my phone, ignoring the way my heart skipped at the endearment. This was insane, reckless, possibly the worst decision I'd ever made. But as I walked past the trash can where I'd thrown his mother's bribe, past the table where she'd tried to buy me off, past all the careful walls I'd built to protect myself, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Free. Maybe Ethan was right. Maybe we had known each other in another life. Maybe this was fate or destiny or some cosmic second chance. Or maybe it was just two broken people finding something worth fighting for. Either way, I was done running, done hiding, done pretending I didn't want this. Tomorrow I'd have dinner with an alpha who remembered loving me in a life I couldn't recall, who saw my strength instead of trying to diminish it, who kissed me like I was the answer to every question he'd ever asked. Tomorrow I'd take a leap of faith, but tonight I'd finish my shift, study chemistry with Marcus, and let myself believe that maybe, just maybe, happy endings weren't just for fairy tales. My phone buzzed one last time. Ethan, I love you. I know it's too soon to say, but I've loved you for 2 lifetimes, and I'm not wasting this one pretending otherwise. I stared at the message, my vision blurring with tears I refused to let fall in the middle of the library. Me. Ask me again after dinner. Maybe I'll surprise you. Ethan. You already have. I smiled at my phone, at the impossible boy who'd crashed into my carefully ordered life with his memories and his certainty and his ridiculous romantic declarations. And somewhere, deep in my chest, in a place I'd kept locked and guarded for so long, something whispered back, maybe I love you too. The end. Thank you for watching this story to the end. If you enjoyed this story, you will surely love the next one. It's as crazier and more intriguing as can ever imagine. So do check it out. Hit subscribe. The next story drops soon.